I'm Chris Phillips, and this is Faith in Politics. On this broadcast, we range from the soul to the state as we cultivate those virtues and explore those principles as we live as faithful Catholics in this great land. Well, welcome back for another episode, folks. We are glad you are with us. We are in the third week of the legislative session. 38 days is all we have, 38 working days spread out over the course of about 2 months. And we are not quite yet halfway through it. Lots of bills are being filed. There is a lot of fur flying, as one of my uncles likes to say. The sausage is being made as we speak. Grateful for you checking back in with us. We're going to do something kind of fun today. We've got a previous contributor to this program back on the show, Dr. Chris Burgwald. Dr. Burgwald, welcome back.
Thanks, Chris. Good to see you.
Glad we're here. You know, as I kind of just get really rolling during the legislative session, it's kind of nice to just like sit down, take a deep breath, and talk about some of these things with friends. Because one of the things that kind of happens in the sausage is being made, as I say, sometimes I describe it as like the pressure cooker, where you really feel like, oh, what's happening? Passions can start to fly. Yep. So it's good to just like take a deep breath, talk about some of these things with, with a friend that's maybe not like quite as in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do today.
Is this really for you, Chris?
It kind of is. I couldn't think of anybody better to do it with than you, my dear friend. So, hey, before we kind of launch into this, there's some exciting things happening in your world. We haven't caught up in a while. What's going on in D&E right now? Discipleship and evangelization.
So we are about to launch. We've launched it. It's about to begin here in a few weeks to be in February, the School of Missionary Discipleship, which we are really excited about in the Office of Discipleship Evangelization. This will be an opportunity, a multi-year. It's a multi-year formation process. No, but it's a robust formation process for people to grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ and their ability to share Him with others.
It looks like a great program.
Yeah.
Where do people, if they want to sign up, where do they go?
Yeah, it's sfcatholic.org/SMD, School of Missionary Discipleship.
SMD.
Can't get much easier than that.
It's awesome. Hey, so one of the things you and Bill were kind of teasing me about this.
Yeah,
so this lobbyist badge.
Did you need that to get in this building? I don't think so.
No, actually, Terry was not standing at the door like, hey, who are you? No, and actually, so it's pretty easy to get into our state capitol. Only this is, I think, our second or maybe even third year now of even having security at the door. Anybody could walk in, no security previously, but now they actually have one of those metal detectors. And anyhow, so this is my lobbyist badge.
Yeah.
I'm required to wear this according to state law. It says South Dakota Catholic Conference. And one of the things that I kind of run into in my work sometimes is people getting a little confused in the sense of like looking at Catholic bishops like just another lobby group. And so I have to at times kind of just take a step back and say, we're a little different. How would you, because I know you get this difference, how would you describe this difference between Catholic bishops, South Dakota Catholic Conference, and any other lobbyists, because we're all wearing the badge.
Right. I think there's a few different ways, a few different distinctions. The first one that comes to my mind, thinking about what's the difference between the South Dakota or a Catholic Conference, where you're wearing the badge that literally says lobbyist, as you said, and other lobbyists. The first thing that comes to my mind is that it seems to me that maybe not all, but most lobbyists are advocating for specific policy proposals.
Yep.
As the norm.
Yep.
Whereas a Catholic conference representing the bishops of a state, as is the case South Dakota, representing the bishops of Sioux Falls and Rapid City, you are advocating not necessarily policy prescriptions or proposals, but principles,
yes,
which should underlie hopefully every bill that it becomes law in the state of South Dakota.
Well put. And there's so much prudence that goes into all the policy prescriptions, and we do weigh in prudence, but really seeking to promote a consensus around principles. So, yeah, thanks. That's sometimes
Did I
hard
pass, by the way?
What?
I've got a soundboard here. Do I get the right answer?
Yeah!
No, I'm not going to.
Okay. Next topic. Marijuana.
Oh,
What's the view from somebody who's like not in the throes of it? What do people think? I mean, what do you see in the news, and where are you at on this?
No. So I'm excited to talk about this, and I hope you don't have to like stop the recording to because you and I, with another colleague in the building, had a little exchange. Part of my role, as listeners probably wouldn't know, is I'm the theological advisor or editor. What's the masthead say? I'm the theological editor for the Bishop's Bulletin.
Oh.
So part of my job is, as a theologian, to review the content of everything in the Bishop's Bulletin, which is the monthly magazine for the Diocese of Sioux Falls, just to make sure that there's nothing there which is contrary to what we believe as Catholics. And my good friend, my esteemed colleague from you,
yes.
I think it was for January's issue, had put something in there, and you raised this question about the recreation, not far from the medical question, the recreational, air quotes for those who might be listening, use of marijuana, and I don't remember, you were kind of matter of fact about its sinfulness, and I just sort of threw out, and just recently, Chris,
I used the word vice.
Vice, yes.
I said it's a vice.
Yes. So just this week in another a national Catholic publication, this question was raised because I sort of just devil's advocated. I like to test ideas. I said, but I mean, it's legitimate to use quote unquote drugs like alcohol for recreational purposes, tobacco for recreational purposes. What's the principle that distinguishes alcohol or tobacco use from marijuana use? And can you remind me and our listeners?
This is one of my questions for you, actually.
Oh.
Because we're going to get to this question, alcohol, marijuana. I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Yeah.
But before we get there,
yes,
help us understand intoxication.
Yes.
And moral
yeah.
teaching on intoxication.
So this is very clear. Whatever kind of drug we're talking about, if I'm intoxicated, I have impaired to, we're talking about intoxication, I've significantly impaired my rational faculty, my ability to think. Right. And if you've ever been in the unfortunate state of being intoxicated, you do not think clearly. And our reason is part of what makes us personal beings. It's an intrinsic dimension of what makes us human beings. We're created by God in his image and likeness, and specifically it speaks to our ability to reason, our intellect, and to choose freely, our free will. So reason and free will. So when I, of my own volition, deliberately impair or impede my ability to reason well, I am violating who and what I was created to be by my Creator.
Yeah.
So if to set out to get drunk,
yes,
is sinful for that reason.
Yes. Okay. Which brings us back to you pressed me a little bit, playing devil's advocate. Okay, why is this a vice? And my response was, well, there are plenty of people that will have a drink. Their purpose is not to get drunk, and that's okay. That's fine. But when we talk about recreational marijuana use, we're talking about people who are ingesting, smoking, imbibing, whatever the case may be, putting that chemical component of the marijuana plant in their body for the purpose of becoming high or stoned.
Right.
Which is intoxication.
Yep. So is your point then that you only use marijuana if you want to get intoxicated?
I mean, recreationally,
right?
Not therapeutically, medically. There are all sorts of drugs that could be used for those purposes. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can use the principle of double effect to say that we're intending something else, which is a legitimate end, a therapeutic or medicinal purpose, and there's a wrongful impact that is foreseen but not intended.
Yep. And then that's now not, you can't say across the board, therefore the action is okay.
Right.
But if you're weighing.
Right. There's still a proportionality.
Yes, proportionality. It's a good reason to permit this unintended, foreseen but unintended side effect or consequence. Another thing which I think is also relevant here, and this was actually brought out in the article that I just came across the other day. now this is not formal Catholic Church teaching, but it is a consensus among Catholic moral theologians, those who in light of what God has revealed to us, study human action and the nature of vice and virtue and good and evil and so on. And the general consensus is, so certainly drunkenness would be, if I deliberately intend to go out and just get hammered, that's gravely sinful. But even if I intend to merely get quote unquote tipsy, that would be venially sinful. It's a category. So sinful, not serious sin, but that intention by itself, because I am impeding not significantly, but I am deliberately to a certain extent impeding my ability to think well. And the Lord knows I need all the help to think well I can get, Chris.
Yes, right.
So even if I, with regard to alcohol or tobacco, if I'm not going to get drunk, but I want to get a good buzz going, as they might say. That itself would be not gravely sinful, but venially sinful for a similar reason, because I'm desiring to impede this faculty that God has given me. Okay. So I think going to marijuana then it becomes clear why marijuana would always be morally problematic.
Boy, we could keep talking about this because let's just keep.
Oh, you have other things to talk about. Okay, all right. Is this the lightning round? This is the lightning round. This is like speed dating.
We'll come back another time. I really want to talk about sin in society.
All right. That's
another episode, though.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the last question on marijuana, and then let's move on. What about this question about decriminalization? Can't we just accept its social presence, and why do we really have to put it in the realm of criminal law? And we could talk about criminal law too, with proportionality and punishment fitting a crime. But what are your thoughts here?
Well, I know you as the lawyer will be quick. I mean, the law is a great teacher, and so you don't make every vice a crime, certainly, but because the law is such a powerful teacher in any society, if you already have a law in place which criminalizes something, by decriminalizing, you are teaching something.
Yeah.
Is this really something that we want to quote unquote teach?
Yeah.
Do we want to embody the idea that the use of marijuana, even for quote unquote recreational purposes, is neutral or even good? Yeah. Because that's what decriminalization says.
Okay, hit the ding, ding, ding. Okay, next topic. The Catholic Conference did not have a position on the prayer in schools bill, moment of silence legislation,
which I saw just.
It died this morning. 9-6 in committee. What's your sense from just kind of the media about, I don't know, you have any thoughts on this one?
No. So do we have time to talk about this one?
Yeah, we could. And I think one of the questions that comes up for people is there's always this sort of church and state.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Well, so tell me, and maybe the listeners, so I did see the headline. What was the bill proposing? What would the bill have entailed had it become law?
Every public school at the beginning of the school day would have required that teachers just say, hey, okay, now we're going to have our moment of silence. Start the stopwatch, 1 minute up. Okay, minute's up, now back to, so just silence for a minute. And, kids could have pulled their own prayer card out of their desk or whatever, or, it's just a moment of silence.
Yeah. So just for me, Chris Burgwald.
Yeah.
Subsidiarity. I'm all about subsidiarity lately. And I to have the freedom to do that.
Sure.
So if there were something blocking school districts from doing that, I would have wanted to see that obstacle removed.
Yep.
But to sort of, I'm not about mandates lately, Chris.
We're not going to go there. Okay, so just to be clear, Catholic Conference didn't have a position on this bill. There's a lot of room for prudential judgment.
Yeah.
Catholics in good conscience, of course, could throw their weight behind it 100%. No issues there, but just curious.
Yeah.
Lots of different takes. But and we'll see if it could bounce back. It's not over till it's over.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against that bill, but I'm not crushed that it was defeated.
Right. Okay, as this episode is going to air, last Saturday was the 49th anniversary of Roe versus Wade. Do you have any particular memories? I mean, you're a few years older than me. What does the 49th anniversary of Roe versus Wade mean for you?
So I was born in 73, later in 73. Yeah. So technically, I don't know what the statutes in Minnesota were, how quickly they changed. Well, they would have changed immediately in January, right? I mean, abortion, whatever.
Law, yep.
I may not be here, of course.
Sure.
That was obviously not the case. But it's always been part of my life, in other words. So abortion, Roe v. Wade was passed near the very beginning of my literal existence. So it's always just been a part of my life. I became, I'm sure we've talked about this before, came sort of relatively young, well, still in elementary school, really interested in politics, to be honest. And abortion sort of appeared. But for me, until my reversion in college, it was I tended to see abortion primarily through the political lens rather than a lens of faith. So seeing it as wrong, but primarily as a quote unquote conservative matter. And it wasn't until my deepening of faith in my reversion during college that I came to see, there are all sorts of people on every part of the political spectrum who recognize the grave evil that is abortion, and therefore the grave injustice that Roe versus Wade promulgated, in a sense, in our country at least. So, yeah, it's always been part of my life. To be honest, Chris, so with this court, this case that the court has already heard and will be deciding later this year, I was attentive in 91, Planned Parenthood v. Casey. I'm going to wait and see how things unfold. Some people are very, very excited and optimistic. I'm hopeful.
Yes.
But I've been here before.
Yes.
On many issues, not just the abortion issue, where the court has, to be trite, let me down.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Put not your trust in princes.
Yep.
And we can certainly hope, but to sort of pin all of our happiness in life on what the court is going to do.
Yep.
One of the things that I know was present back in 91 with Planned Parenthood versus Casey when everybody was let down, but there's been this question of like incrementalism versus just go for the all out everything that is, to be frank, just provoked discord within the pro-life movement. And I'm concerned just within the attentiveness to spiritual things that the evil one is going to try and provoke similar sorts of discord.
Division.
Yeah, division. Any spiritual wisdom for pro-lifers as we approach this key moment with the Dobbs case coming up next spring, summer?
Yeah, So I just headlined, didn't read the article, but headlined another Catholic publication just this week as well. Abortion rights supporters are already preparing for a post-Roe reality. Are we? And so just presumably, again, I didn't read the article, like we need to prepare and plan and so on. And I do think there's prudence in that. To be honest, I think the thing that's coming to my mind first and foremost right now is between now and the decision to be praying and, to be honest, fasting. Yes. For the true, right, and just decision to be made. And I think certainly some of us will be called to, okay, if that does unfold, we should be thinking about the possibility. But my attention right now is very much on this decision and what can I do? I mean, the justices are not politicians. I'm not going to be sending in letters to the Supreme Court, advocating for my position. But I can pray and I can fast. Well, and speaking of letters to the court, you're right. You can't do that. Quick shout out though. This last fall it was big amicus brief committed to this. Sure. And that's kind of how you write a letter to the court. Co-signed by both Governor Nome. It was all women, 200 and some women making the case that, look, we don't need abortion to be professionally accomplished. So kudos to Governor Nome, as well as a number of professional South Dakota women who signed that amicus brief. So pray and fast, great spiritual counsel. Yep. Okay, another topic that is going to be returning to the legislature. I'm pleased to see it coming back. It's been up there before. A bill to kind of curtail the death penalty in some limited respects when it's proven that the defendant suffers from a serious mental illness. This issue, just to be really candid, I know that there are Catholics out there that
not that there's any distrust with the church, but it's just an issue that they feel, and I think it's sort of a righteous sort of feeling. They feel an obligation and justice to victims to really take seriously grave and heinous crimes. I've also heard Catholics that have really come to see how opposition to the death penalty and wanting to get rid of it in our civil law is in fact a powerful statement for the dignity of life. Many people have testified to our former Bishop Robert Carlson as being helpful to them in their hearts opening on this issue. Do you have anything to offer folks that are maybe still kind of sorting through this and these questions of justice? And
so for me, this is definitely an issue where when I had the reversion that I mentioned earlier during college, where there was and for me, thanks be to God, it's a pretty quick flip where I had been firmly pro-death penalty. As an engaged watcher of things political, and my reversion happens, and I read within a year or two the relatively new encyclical of now St. John Paul II, Evangelium Vitae, the Gospel of Life, and where he just sort of lays out not arguing as a politician, but just as a shepherd, as a theologian, as a philosopher, as a man of God. The church's not intrinsic opposition, important distinction, to the death penalty, but the reason why prudentially it's increasingly less necessary, at least in Western societies. So I read that and I'm like, and as I reflected on, okay, why this is very much for me, and others will have different rationales, but I came to see that for me, I had confused unintentionally justice with vengeance. So for me, my support of the death penalty, I was they get what's coming to them. Vengeance and justice are not the same thing, but my thinking was governed more by a mentality of vengeance than of justice. And that was helpful. And there's some other distinctions that I came across in articles, how we don't always impose as a matter of justice the penalty, if you will, which is of the same nature as the crime that I committed. So somebody who is found guilty of physical abuse of a spouse or something, we don't beat them.
Right.
We imprison them.
Right.
And I came to say, okay, well, the nature of the penalty imposed as a matter of retributive justice is distinct from the crime that was committed all the time. So for me, I came to see, okay, just because, yes, they killed somebody, that doesn't mean that as a matter of justice, they need to be killed themselves.
Okay. Tax credit scholarships. I'm transitioning. That was great. Give yourself another ding, ding, ding. We need another ding, ding, ding. That was a great answer. And I think just your personal experience, too, is really beautiful.
Thanks.
We've got it.
Tax credit scholarships.
Tax credit scholarships. Yeah. So this last week, flew out of committee 5-1, flew off the Senate floor 27-5.
Wow.
There's a bill to expand the South Dakota Partners in Education Tax Credit Scholarship Program. The program's currently capped at $2 million, bumping it up to 3.5. And in really briefly, how it works is insurance companies get a credit against their tax bill to the state if they donate to the program. This, for me, I want to hear your experience, but for me, I didn't know that the church had a teaching on this before I started working for the Catholic Conference a little over 4 years ago. Have you long been aware of the church's teaching?
I don't know.
Gravissimum educationis.
Okay.
It's a Second Vatican Council. It's in the Catechism. It's this teaching that, in fact, the public authorities have a duty to provide subsidies or tax credits to make sure that parents are truly free to choose the education that is best suited to their child.
Okay.
You give me a look now.
I'd be curious to know what the actual. I find it a little bit hard to believe that the words tax credit or.
Okay, the word subsidies is in Gravissimo Educationis.
So, okay, subsidies. Okay.
And the word tax credit is a phrase that's used by the U.S. bishops in their Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship document. Okay. Yeah, it's true. it's like the only place I'm aware of that, I mean, there's a lot of principles that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But even in social doctrine, providing for the poor and health, I mean, but even there, the church doesn't say thou shalt spend money.
Right.
But it actually does.
And I've read that document, but I mean, read it in college and wasn't thinking of public policy proposals. So that is literally right now news to me.
Okay. Well, now you know.
So now I know.
Now you know. Okay.
So what was your question about? Now I know. What was your question about it, though? I apologize.
Maybe you did. I thought maybe you would know, and you could explain to us how you came to understand the church's.
No, sorry.
Okay. Well, that's all I got. No, I'm just joking. We've got a couple minutes left. One of the things, that's it for our policy topics. We've got some more, but I don't want to get into something that we can't give it its due.
Okay.
We've got a couple minutes left. And here's something I want to talk about in closing that you just do so well, that I think is just such an important spiritual. In the Catholic Conference Book Club, we were talking about this last week as we're kind of wrapping up our book club. Humor as like a balm for our age. And that's something I really felt just being in the pressure cooker myself, and having some, at times, candid, frank, argumentative. I try not to be argumentative ever, but, there can be, just when you're honest and talking politics with friends, but humor. Have you always been a person of like just such humor? How do you?
Yes.
Are you deliberate about this? Like,
no, it's my.
It's just the way you are.
It's just the way I am. Chris, what did the drummer name his twin daughters?
I don't know.
And a 1 and a 2. Well, I'm just trying to play up
That's it.
No, I've always been pretty. I mean, I'm pretty. Jermaine can tell you, my wife, pretty optimistic and so on. And I just, as I've matured, just becoming comfortable and more self-confident. But I'm just,
okay, but here's the thing too: is you also, not that you get in fights. You could. We can all see Chris Burgwald kind of getting in a heated political discussion.
Absolutely.
Do you consciously then say like, okay, I need to bring in a little humor, or does it just happen?
Well, it tends to just happen. I think it's just innate to me. It's natural to me. I think that's just me reading. Like, okay, we can't take this. This is not like we're getting loud. We're getting heated. We're arguing in the best sense. It's not a quarrel. Arguments and quarrels are two different things. Yes. So sometimes I just intuit that I've got to call. Hey, this is not personal, and humor helps that so beautifully.
Well, it's a witness to me. I thank you for it, Dr. Chris Burgwald. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Thank you, dear listeners, as always, for tuning in. Glad you were with us this week. As always, love listener feedback. Don't hesitate to reach out. You can go to sdcatholicconference.org, click Contact Us. Let us know what you want to hear about. Let us know what you're interested in. You can find us on Twitter at sdcatholicconf, Facebook, Instagram. Trying to get the word out, all those ways and more. Until next time, live well.